Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Anessa and I am an indie author and I publish under the pen name A.N. Sage. I write fantasy, sci-fi, a lot of YA, and pretty much anything paranormal. In today's video, we are actually on our last video of the world building plotting mini-series, and we're going to be talking about economy. So if you are wondering how to structure the economical part of your world prior to starting your first draft, then stick around and we'll be right back with some tips and some tricks from me. Hello, my magical friends. Welcome back. As mentioned in the intro, this is the last video in our world building little series, and I'm really excited to kind of bring the series to a close. If you've been following along, we've already discussed things like general world building, characters, magic systems, politics, etc. And in today's video, we are talking about economy. Economy kind of touches on a lot of different things, so I thought I would leave that for last to kind of bring this whole series to an end. If you want to see more videos like this, if you're interested in the art of writing or just want to see some behind the scenes, then make sure that you are subscribed to the channel and that you hit the bell notification so that you can see when new videos pop up from me, which is usually once a week, except for right now when we actually have 3 videos going out every week, because 2 of those videos are chapters from the Witch of Shadows audiobook that I now have permission to post on YouTube, which is great. So if you haven't heard that, we are about over halfway, I think, throughout the audiobook at this point when you're seeing this video. And so we're getting close to the end. We should be finished in approximately 1 week. I think next week is the last portion of that. So if you want to wait, you can wait until everything's out and listen to the whole thing one after the other, or you can catch up right now. So enough blabbing, let's talk about money. So we are talking about economy as it pertains to structuring economy in your fictional world. A lot of what I'll say will be related to fantasy because that is what I'm comfortable with speaking on and writing. However, you can actually relate this to pretty much any other fictional world that you are creating and plotting. So the first thing that I want to talk about when it comes to plotting and figuring out the economy in your world is figuring out and understanding the setting of the world. Is it modern? Is it not? Is there a modern economy in place, as in modern in the way that we know it now? Is money exchanged for goods and services, or is there a bartering system? Is there a trading system? How does that work? Because you really need to kind of understand that to know how the economy is going to come into play. If you are not in a modern society in the way, or you're not writing a typical society as we know it now, you might not have money, right? Like you might have goods and trades, or magic could be traded for certain things. Different services concerning magic could be used to get other things. And so people might be living in your world in a very different way, but in the end, it's still going to be an economy because there is something that is given to get something else. There's a trade happening. So you want to figure out the setting of your world and how those trades will go down, because that's really going to move you forward in thinking about how the economy truly works. You also want to consider the history of your economy. Our world as we know it started as a bartering system, and now we have something to represent a financial gain. We have paper money, coins, etc. It wasn't always like that, right? Like we used to trade sheep for things, and still do in some parts. And so you want to know what the history is and how your economy came to be. And this is kind of partly what I talked about when I said economy touches on everything, because that history also concerns your politics and your magic system, right? And so economy kind of works into that history as well. Your history document of your world will probably be the biggest portion of your plotting because you will keep adding things to it. And so when you're thinking about the history of just the economical standpoint of your current world, you want to consider how all these other things that you've already plotted, like your politics, your magic system, your characters, etc., how they function within this economy and how they used to function with this economy, i.e., how did this economy grow and develop to become what it is today. Perhaps you also started your economy on a bartering system, and now that bartering system is really a black market of magic, right? Because maybe in a modern setting, you are not allowed to trade in magic anymore, but some people still do. That's a huge kind of shadowy world of your economy that might be a huge part of your entire plot. It might help your characters kind of understand where they fit into your plot as well. And so knowing the history becomes a pretty prevalent part when you're thinking about your economy, because that is how economy works. It grows, it develops, it morphs into different things, and it continues to do so. And so as your world progresses, your economy might progress too. Your MC might be responsible for changing the economy of your world or how things function. And so that's something really to kind of note and think about. You also want to consider currency. So that kind of goes hand in hand with the understanding of the setting. But what is the currency in your world? Is it dollars? Is it rupees? Is there a name for it? Is there some magical currency that you need to create a name for? You want to really think about this currency, because you might want to hint at it throughout. Not only will it add to more depth to your story, but it also will help you think of how things work. So if your character has to pay rent, for example, or they have a shop that they're running in this magical part of town, you want to think about what that currency is that they're working with. And that might offer some struggles and some conflict as well, right? Are they struggling to meet the ends? Is there a way for them to make more money, but they have to do something wrong to do it? So how does currency play into it? And what is that currency? If that currency is magic, maybe your MC doesn't have enough magic, right, to function well in this world, putting them kind of on the lower end of the totem pole. That's something to think about as well, where your character is currency-wise on the scale of who has money, who doesn't, and where they fit in. And we'll talk about that just a little bit later as well. You want to also consider how goods and services are distributed. So in your bubble of a world, how do these goods and services get to people? Is there someone that dollies them out? Is there a bigger government? Politics, again, coming into play. Is it everybody fends for themselves? So whatever you can grow, you kind of survive off of that. So how do you distribute these goods? And are there regulations, right? Are there marketplaces? Are there times of day when you can barter? Are there shops like there are in a modern world where you just go in and you buy stuff? And then if you do, how do you get the money to buy that stuff, right? So you want to think about the goods and services and what types of goods and services that you have in your world that might create some sort of economical balance. Then you want to really think about the resources that are available to your world, how the trade works, not just within your world, but this is more of with the outside world. If you have a fictional town or city or country, how does that town function economically with the rest of your world, planet, whatever it is, universe, whatever you've developed, right? Is there a trade system? Are there ports? Do they deliver somehow? Is it quid pro quo? Do they offer something to get something in return? Because really, no place is an island, just like no man is an island, but no place, no world is an island, right? It requires something from somewhere else. And so you really want to think about what resources are available to your world for it to be sustainable. Because in order for it to be believable, it has to be sustainable somehow. And trades and resources are a huge part of that. Not only will they give your world economic stability, but they will also define the geography of your world, right? Because you might have a lot of water, for example, in your world, right? Whereas another country might be a desert land. And so there might be a bartering system between those two, right? Which really helps you in figuring out, that's a plot point I haven't thought of. That might be an interesting way to take things. So start thinking about what resources are around and make sure that you have enough resources that it's balanced, right? you can't have too much of one thing, not enough of another, because again, they need to survive somehow. These people, these characters you've created, they have to live in this world somehow. And so you want to really think about what will provide them with the most optimal living conditions to carry them through your plot. And then going back to kind of how money works, really, or how your money system works, is the economical status of everybody in your world, right? Do you have rich people, poor people, middle class? How is that decided? There's always some sort of hierarchy, at least from like what I've seen, unless you're writing a utopia. And even then there's a hierarchy, but it's slightly different. It might not be economical, but it could be in a different way. And so you also want to think about who has more, who has less, and why. You want to think about how the people who have more, how they keep that more, and how the people who have less, how they survive, and do they strive to have more? Is that important for them? Are they rich in a different way? So thinking about the status of your economy and how these people function in it will really help you position your players on the board, so to say, right? Your MC might come from a world where they have many riches, and they're kind of like slung into this underbelly, this hidden, shadowy world that has less, and how things operate there. It's a shock to their system, right? That's something that you could play with. You could play with the opposite, where they don't have a lot and they're trying to get more, and they might be doing some seedy things to get there. So how is it that your economical status of your world, how does it work, and how does it affect your main character? Because it will, right? It will at some point. They have to live in this world, and so they'll either have nothing, or they'll have a lot, or they'll be somewhere in the middle, but they will exist somewhere on this like economical little teeter-totter that you've created. And so you need to figure out what each end of that spectrum is, so that you know where to place them. Because depending on where you place them, you'll balance them and shift their balance a certain way, and it will develop your conflicts better, and it will develop your characters better. And then the kind of like the last sort of thing is how people work, right? Everybody works. We have to get stability somehow, whether it's money or like the place we live in, or having a roof over our heads, right? We need jobs. So what are those jobs, right? Are there more jobs that are better than others? Like, are there jobs that people strive to get? Are there easier jobs, harder jobs? And that takes you back again to the economical status, right? Because how do those jobs interconnect with your rich and your poor and everything else in between? You want to really think about what those jobs are, because it really helps you kind of develop like a system that works in itself, right? Like, even if you have a small place that sustains itself completely, there's going to be jobs within that place, right? Everybody has something to do. You don't just like exist for the reason of existing. You wake up in the morning to do something. So what are those jobs? Why are they there? Why are they important to your world? And they're kind of like, what is the glue of those jobs that keeps your entire world together? How do those jobs and that economy, how does it play into the politics of your world that you've already created? How does it play into shaping your characters? Where does the magic system come in? Is it part of the economy? Is it a hidden part of the economy? Things like that. Like, you really want to really think about the nitty gritty of like who does what in this place, right? Because they got to do something. Like they can't not. And so you really want to kind of figure out like how that works in other parts of your world, right? Like, is there a financial district, or is there a selling district? If there's a marketplace, is that the place to be? If you want to have more money to survive, what kind of people does that develop, right? Like, do you have the people who are shopping, who are quiet, people who are haggling people? Is there some kind of like system where people trick each other into making sales, into getting money? Is there a desperation in your economy? And is your world kind of on this like a shifting balance, right? Where it could break at any moment. These are all things where jobs and workplaces and the things that people do really take effect, and it could definitely help you have like this very strong developed world, and economy is a big part of that because it plays in so well into all these other things that we already talked about. It's at the center of everything, right? And it's at the center of your conflict if you really think about it, because somehow your main character who exists in this world is going to have their perfect world that they're used to. It might not be perfect, it might be actually really crap, but it's their reality is going to get shattered, right? Like that's where your whole conflict is going to start building. So that reality shatters. And so how does their economical standpoint, or their standpoint in general, their value that they add to your world, how does that shatter as well? And how do they begin to rebuild it, right? Where do they fit in after that? And so I think it's interesting to think about money and economy and all that stuff. I think it's an interesting exercise to do, whether it plays a big part in your story or not. I find it incredibly valuable to go through this exercise and try to really think about it, because it really, I found since when I think about economy, I actually end up going back and restructuring certain things in my world and changing the plot a lot, because I realized that I thought of something that might be more interesting, or something that might add a detail, or something that will create a plot hole later if I don't figure it out, because of the way the world works, right? There's different parts of your world that you're developing, and everyone has some sort of weight. And if you take one away, that weight will go out of balance, right? And so you want to have all these kind of building blocks in place, whether you use them, you write about them or not, they should be in place kind of there, holding your world up. And the economy is a pretty big one. It's an important one because it's very closely related to how we understand the world to be shaped. And you really want to give it some thought, at least try to figure out the basics of it. So this one video is a bit shorter. I mean, it's money. We know how money works and how bartering systems work. So it is a bit shorter, but I thought it was a good way to just kind of touch base a little bit on this part, because it is very, very important in my opinion. And I hope that it helped you out a bit, and that in general, I hope that the series was helpful to you. If you haven't watched the other videos, definitely go back and watch through them, especially if you're just starting to plot your first novel or just like in the midst of drafting. It might be a good little thing to watch so that you can get some tips, and it might help you think about your world a little bit differently. And if you're not a plotter, shame on you. Just kidding. No, everybody does things different. I don't plot. Like, I do plot a lot of my novels, but I didn't used to always plot all my novels. So I see the benefits of both sides. What I do find is if I don't plot something out, I usually, as I'm drafting, will go back and kind of like take notes and plot anyways. It might be a rough idea of plotting, but there's something there. And so if you are more of like a pantser, it might be interesting for you to watch kind of the series. So it might spark some ideas as you're drafting for certain things that you could put in your story to make it take a different direction as you're working. So with that said, thank you as always for watching this, for showing your support. I am so grateful that you're here. I love making these videos. I hope you like them too. Definitely comment below if you want to see something else in the future, a different series, or anything you want me to expand on, or if you want to see like more planning videos or something like that. And make sure that you're subscribed to the channel so that you can know when I have more videos out. And with that said, have a great week, wonderful weekend, and stay magical as always. And I will talk to you guys next week. But in the meantime, before I do, there will be 2 more episodes of Witch of Shadows. So make sure that you are staying tuned for those. I'll talk to you guys soon, and have a great, whatever seems like springtime coming. Bye.